Good day, grade 9s, and happy greetings to each and every one of you. I'm so delighted that you could join us in today's lesson. It's brought to you by WorksheetCloud, and you're in the grade 9 Natural Sciences classroom. If you have a question during the lesson, send an email with your question to grade9@worksheetcloud.com. If this is the first time you have joined the WorksheetCloud grade 9 Natural Sciences classroom, my name is Mrs. Ernston and I am your teacher. So just a few hints and tips. Please remember to wear a mask if you are going to be leaving your home to exercise in the mornings. Please also remember to touch the mask as little as possible with your hands and just take it on and off your face using your fingers. While you are wearing a mask, please remember to touch your hair and eyes and face and nose and mask as little as possible. Please always ensure that you are washing your hands with soap and warm water. You can also monitor your well-being by checking your temperature every day, and if you have a fever, contact your doctor. Please remember your social distancing and keep 1.5 to 2 meters away from people, and where possible, grade 9s, please stay at home. So to any of you that are celebrating a birthday today, happy birthday. Here is a sparkler surprise for you and a little message to remember to smile and that you are loved. And interestingly enough, not only have I put the sparklers in for your birthday celebrations, but it is also the topic of our lesson today. So we are going to be having a look at general reactions of metals with oxygen. We're going to focus on what happens when a metal reacts with oxygen, what is the product called, how can we represent the general reaction between a metal and oxygen, and what is a combustion reaction. If you are new to the lessons and some concepts may be confusing to you, please go back and look at our previous lessons on the periodic table and the naming of compounds and of balancing chemical equations or chemical reaction equations, and it will help you understand the work better. But I'm sure you're going to do just fine today. So firstly, what is combustion? So just from your everyday knowledge, I would just like you to write down a couple of keywords of what thoughts come to mind when I say combustion. Okay, one of the images that comes to my mind is sparklers burning. And a definition for combustion is the rapid chemical combination of a substance with oxygen, and it involves the production of heat and light. Some important points to remember about combustion. Firstly, combustion is a chemical reaction. Secondly, it takes place in the presence of oxygen. Thirdly, there is a release of energy as heat and light. The reactants in the equation always have to include oxygen, and the product will always contain an oxide. So some of you might recognize these word equations from previous lessons. So the first one, we have magnesium plus oxygen gives us magnesium oxide. We have iron plus oxygen gives us iron oxide. Copper plus oxygen gives us copper oxide. And what I would like you to do is brainstorm everything that comes to mind when you look at these chemical word equations. I would also like you to focus on the similarities between each equation. So you can pause your video now and you can do the brainstorm activity. So things that should come to mind. Well, let's have a discussion about it. One thing I notice is that they all involve a metal plus oxygen. So magnesium is a metal, iron is a metal, copper is a metal. They all involve oxygen. They all make an oxide. In terms of the reaction, the products is always a compound, and it's magnesium oxide. That compound is always written with the metal first, and we don't say magnesium oxygen. We change the suffix of oxygen to oxide. It's the same in all: oxide, oxide, oxide. We have the metal first, metal first, metal first in the product. In our reactants, which are to the left of the reaction, we have metal plus oxygen, metal plus oxygen, metal plus oxygen. I'm not too sure if you came up with any other ideas, but if you did, well done. I think we've covered the main ones here. So just to revert back to our periodic table, so you have a frame of reference, oxygen, which is one of the reactants, is a non-metal. And all the other metals that we had a look at, all the other elements that we had a look at were metals: magnesium, iron, and copper. The general reaction of metals with oxygen is a metal plus oxygen gives us the metal's name plus oxide. So for example, magnesium plus oxygen reacts to give us magnesium oxide. Iron, it's the metal plus oxygen, reacts to give us iron oxide. Copper, which is the metal plus oxygen, reacts to give us copper oxide. Do you remember the rules when naming a compound? If not, go back to our naming compounds lesson from a few lessons ago, but I will just remind you briefly now. When we react a metal with a non-metal, so in this instance we're reacting a metal, which is magnesium, copper, or oxygen, and the non-metal is oxygen. When we react them, and we've now got to write the name of the compound, the name of the product, you always write the metal first, and that is the name of the element. You don't make any changes. And then second, you write the name, you leave a space, and then you write the word of the non-metal, but you don't write it in its elemental form. You change the suffix to "ide". Okay, so just to recap from our previous lessons, when we were having a look at the periodic table and grouping in the periodic table, so you're welcome to go back and preview these lessons. We spoke about group 1, the alkali metals, and here is group 1. Lithium, sodium, potassium, and those are the ones that you need to know for grade 9. They are all very active elements. They are soft metals with low melting points. The important thing that we need to draw on this for today's lesson is they react with oxygen. So because of that, we store them under paraffin. They also react easily with oxygen to form an oxide. They also react aggressively with water to release hydrogen, and you can keep a lookout for our future lessons where we'll go through this again. The reactiveness increases from top to bottom in the group. So potassium is more reactive than lithium. all have a valence electron of 1, and therefore their valency is -1. Metals in the same group will react in the same way as each other with oxygen. Potassium reacts with oxygen in the same way that sodium reacts with oxygen. So the chemical equations are going to show similarities. So if we have a look at metal oxides from group 1, they are going to follow the general formula of M subscript 2O. So in the formula, M represents the metal atom and O represents the oxygen atom, which means when metals from group 1 react with oxygen and we make a compound, that compound will be made up of 2 atoms of the metal and 1 atom of the oxygen. So for example, if we take the metal plus the oxygen, we're going to get a metal oxide. But in the metal oxide, we're going to have 2 atoms of metal and 1 atom of oxygen. So for example, we're going to have lithium plus oxygen gives us lithium, 2 atoms of lithium oxide. What I would like you to do now is to pick any 2 of the other metals from group 1 and write the chemical reaction equation. So write the formula just like we have it here using this rule. So you can pause the video now and you can try and write 2 other metals from group 1. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at group 2. Group 2 on the periodic table are known as the alkali earth metals, and they have a valency of 2+, which means they will release 2 electrons during bonding. And the group 2 metals you need to know are beryllium, magnesium, and calcium. So metals in the same group will react in the same way with oxygen. So calcium reacts with oxygen in the same way that magnesium will react with oxygen. So the chemical reactions are also going to show similarities. So if we take metal oxides from group 2 on the periodic table, the metal oxide formula will be MO, which means in the compound, metal oxide compound, you can have 1 atom of metal and 1 atom of oxygen. So here are the metals from group 2 in the periodic table. So in the formula, here M represents the metal, O represents oxygen. So we can therefore say that metals from group 2 will react with oxygen and they'll have the following general equation. And remember, M is going to represent a group 2 metal. So the general equation is going to be metal plus oxygen. Remember, oxygen is diatomic, that's why we write it with 2 atoms, makes a metal oxide. 1 atom of metal bonds with 1 oxygen atom. So for example, if we use magnesium, magnesium plus oxygen gives us magnesium oxide. 1 atom of magnesium, 1 atom of oxygen. So now I would like you to pick any 2 metals from group 2, and I would like you to practice writing the chemical reaction using the formulae and using this rule. So you can pause the video now. Okay, so let's go through some examples. The chemical equation for the reaction between calcium and oxygen, if we look at the balanced equation, 2 molecules of calcium plus 1 molecule of diatomic oxygen gives us 2 molecules of calcium oxide. So what is the product called in this reaction? Calcium oxide, written as CaO. And a reminder the calcium and magnesium and beryllium come from group 2, and we refer to them as the alkali earth metals. Okay, so the chemical equation for the reaction between sodium and oxygen is going to be 4 molecules of sodium plus 1 molecule of oxygen. This diatomic reacts to give us 2 molecules of sodium oxide. So what is the product in this reaction called? So firstly, sodium comes from the group 1. You've got to learn lithium, sodium, and potassium. So the product is sodium oxide. We write it as Na2O, and the metals are from group 1, known as the alkali metals. Can you write the chemical reaction using pictures, words, and symbols for the reaction taking place in this diagram? So magnesium plus oxygen is going to give us magnesium oxide. So that's Mg plus O2 gives us MgO. If we're going to use pictures, here is 2 molecules of magnesium react with 1 molecule of diatomic oxygen and gives us 2 molecules of magnesium oxide. So that is magnesium oxide. In our picture diagram, we have ensured that it is balanced, and if we write it as a balanced equation, here's purple, the purple dot is Mg. That's 1 atom, but it's also 1 molecule, hence there are 2 molecules of magnesium react with. Oxygen is diatomic, so that's 1 atom, together they form 1 molecule, so 1 molecule of oxygen. Here we have 1 molecule of magnesium oxide, here we have 1 molecule of magnesium oxide, so we have 2 molecules of magnesium oxide, and there's our balanced equation. Can you write the chemical equation reaction using pictures, words, and symbols for the reaction taking place in this diagram? Now, this is giving you a sneak peek into one of our future lessons where we're going to be having a look at iron reacting with oxygen. So this is a little bit challenging because I haven't actually taught it to you yet. So to help you along the way, I have given you the symbols. I don't necessarily in grade 9 expect you to be able to work with this, and that is because iron is one of the transition metals. So if you have to balance the reaction, that would be a balanced reaction for the formulae, and this is what our picture diagram would look like. So if you have a look at these pictures, do you think you are able to provide this page with a title? So here we have a fire made from wood. Here we have rockets taking off, a candle, fire made from coals, it's a gas burner, a match, jet, engines, jet, you can see this jet fuel, a forest fire, petrol. So a good title for this page would be the daily uses of combustion. And I'm sure that you could think of many other ways in which items burn in oxygen and in the process produce heat and light. So a fun activity to end off this lesson. I'm not too sure if you've ever used a Thinker's Keys alphabet before, but what I'd like you to do is down the margin of your page, write the letters A all the way through to Z. And then I'd like you to spend about 2 minutes seeing what words from today's lesson could you associate with these letters. So for example, C, I would go combustion. R, I would go reaction. C, you might also say chemical. M, you might say metal. Now, I don't want to give too much of it away, but I want you to spend some time trying to do a thinker's keys to summarize today's lesson. So, grade 9s, I have thoroughly enjoyed spending my lesson with you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to you joining me in our future lessons. And those of you that have just joined us today, please go and have a look at our previous lessons and see what is waiting in store for you there. And I'd also like to thank WorksheetCloud for bringing this lesson to you. Goodbye, grade 9s.